So we'll be going over IRS Form 211, Application for Award for Original Information. So this is the form that the IRS Whistleblower Office uses to process information reported to them about alleged tax abuse, violations of tax law. And under Internal Revenue Code 7623, the federal government is authorized to issue monetary rewards for information that lead to the recoupment of lost tax funds. So basically, a whistleblower complaint that leads to a monetary recovery. And under 7623, the whistleblower mentioned is eligible for a monetary compensation. The amount of compensation is determined by a couple of factors. One, the amount of taxes that are at stake. Two, how relevant their information is to recouping that money, and also most importantly, the the nature of the violation, whether or not this was key information, whether it was the only whistleblower involved, things of that nature. So basically, if you feel like you're giving the IRS information that they're going to be able to use to recoup a significant amount of tax money, then you can file this form and you may be entitled to part of that award. The IRS Whistleblower Office does have a little bit more information on their website, specifically on claim eligibility, and I'll go over that really quickly, and what kind of information needs to be on this form. So a couple things, and then we'll dive into the form itself. The form, when you complete it, should be able to completely describe the alleged tax noncompliance. You're going to need to actually write down what happened. You should be able to provide enough information to support what you're saying. So if you have records, copies of books, ledger sheets, receipts, bank accounts, contracts, emails, things of that nature, if you know where assets are that are being hidden, all of this is helpful information that will help the IRS determine the next steps. A description of the documents or supporting evidence that you might not have, but that you are aware of and where the IRS may find them. An explanation of how and when you became aware of this information that is, the basis of the claim. A complete description of either your present or your former relationship. So if you were the accountant, if you were the bookkeeper for someone that's been committing tax fraud, you would need to kind of completely explain that information. And then you also need to sign this form under penalty of perjury, which legally binds you to only submitting truthful statements. So you have to sign this personally, even if you've have IRS Form 2848 on file, which is the power of attorney form recognized by the IRS. You, as the taxpayer or the whistleblower, must sign this form. It must be submitted in writing. We'll talk about that momentarily. And then there are some eligibility requirements for individuals. Virtually everyone can file this form with the following exceptions. Any individual who is an employee of the Department of Treasury or was a Department of Treasury employee when you receive the information that you're reporting. If you obtain this information through your official duties as a government employee, so you can be a federal government employee, but if you found out about this outside of your official role, you can still file the form. If your official role was part of the reason you discovered this information, then you're not eligible for a whistleblower reward. If you're an individual who is or was required by federal law to disclose this information, or if you were precluded by federal law from disclosing this information, you're not allowed to then submit this form for reimbursement. You're either required to report it, which you should, or you're not allowed to report it, which you should not. Either way, you're not going to get a whistleblower reward simply for doing this. If you're an individual who obtained or had access to this information based on a contract awarded by the federal government, so if you're a contractor and you happen upon certain information as a government contractor, you would not be eligible for this. And finally, if you filed a claim for award based on information that you obtained from an ineligible whistleblower for the purpose of avoiding a rejected claim that would have happened. So for example, if you have a friend who is an IRS employee who happens to know about this and somehow that relationship led you to have this information in your possession, if you acquired that information through your relationship with an ineligible employee, then you yourself would not be eligible for this whistleblower reward. So the whistleblower website has a lot more information. In fact, they submit an annual report to Congress that kind of tells Congress how much money the IRS recoups this. And since the whistleblower program began in 2007, the IRS has paid out over 2,500 different awards to whistleblowers for a total of just over $1 billion. This was based on the successful collection of $6.39 billion that the IRS was able to recoup. So on average, somewhere around, looks like about maybe 15% is probably what the reasonable expectation is. And again, the dollar amount really is more of a percentage that's based on a couple of complexity factors. So let's get into the form itself. Like I said, it's a one-page form. It's got a section A and a section B. So we'll start with section A about the reportable event, and then we'll go down to section B, which is information about yourself. So in section A, you are simply submitting information about the person or the business that you're reporting. So in line 1, you'll check the box if this is a new submission or if you've previously submitted it. If you're providing additional information for the same or similar non-compliant activities, and you're identifying additional activities by the same taxpayer, then you would enter this as a supplemental submission. And then if you actually have a previously assigned claim number, which would appear in the top right corner as completed by the IRS, then you would enter that here. In box 2, you would enter your last 4 of your taxpayer identification number. It can be a social security number, could be an individual taxpayer ID number, or it can be an employer identification number. And then in line 3, the name of the taxpayer to include any, in line 2, this is the last 4 digits of the taxpayer that you're reporting, their identification number. So the whether it's your employer, whether if you're the accountant for the person, then you would send their last 4 digits. In line 3, it would be the taxpayer's name to include any aliases, any related taxpayers who committed the violation. In lines 4 and 5, you would enter the taxpayer's address, and 5, the date of birth, or their approximate age. And again, the IRS can work with information that's as complete as you're able to provide. So if you're not able to uh, list an exact date of birth, or if you don't know the last four digits of someone's social security number, then complete as much information as you can. In line 6, if you previously reported this violation to an IRS employee, then you'll need to annotate the name and the title, the contact information of the employee that you reported the violation to, if you know that person's name. In box 7, you'll check everything that applies, which type of violation. So income tax, employment tax, employee plans, not just retirement plans, but could be an HSA, it could be a cafeteria plan, governmental entities, exempt organizations. If there's something else, some other tax law, then identify it and write it in. So in line 8, you'll simply state all the facts that you know. You can attach more documentation if you cannot fit everything into one line. In fact, you probably should. You should probably not spare any words when it comes to submitting as much information as you can. And then also, most importantly, explain why you believe this act that you're describing violated the tax law. In line 9, you'll enter how you learned about or obtained the information that supports your claim, and if you need to attach additional documentation, you're more than welcome to do so. In line 10, you'll check the appropriate box. So if you're an employee, family member, attorney, CPA, if you have another relationship, then enter that in the box. And then check whether or not you still maintain a relationship. If you check yes to number 11, then describe your current relationship with the taxpayer. In line 13, you'll check yes or no as to whether or not you're involved in any legal proceedings or any government administrative proceedings currently involving the taxpayer. And then in line 14, if you check yes, then you will have to explain what exactly you're involved in. For lines 15 and 16, you'll provide a description of the amount of tax that the taxpayer owes. You'll also need to provide a summary of the information. You'll attach any supporting documentation as required. And then you complete this information in line 16 by tax year and by dollar amount to the extent that you know them. So if this is something over multiple tax years, then there's space for at least 5 different tax years. In section B, you're going to complete this information. You're reporting information about yourself. So we'll start with line 17. Your name as the individual claimant, followed by your date of birth, and then your last 4 digits of either your Social Security or your individual taxpayer identification number. And then lines 20 through 23 are simply checking the box for eligibility as I previously described. Are you an IRS employee? Are you a spouse or a dependent of an employee? Are you an IRS contractor? Are you a federal, state, or a local government employee? In line 24, you'll list your address to include your city, state, and zip code. In line 25, you'll provide your phone number to include your area code. And in line 26, you'll enter your email address. Finally, on line 27, you're declaring under penalty of perjury that everything you're submitting is true, complete, and correct to the best of your knowledge. So you'll sign and date this form. There is additional information on the back, most notably the mailing address, since you will have to send this form as well as any supporting documentation via mail to the IRS. Specifically to the whistleblower office, you can find that information in the form itself. And that is all we have for IRS Form 211. If you'd like to learn more about this form and how to complete it, we've written a step-by-step guide, which you can find on our website, teachmepersonalfinance.com. Simply go to teachmepersonalfinance.com and type in IRS Form 211. This article should appear. If you like our articles, please subscribe to our newsletter. And if you like our YouTube videos, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please post them in the comments section, or you can send me an email. Thank you very much.